have a couple questions actually. So I did hear you say that you list businesses on bizbuysell.com.
Yeah.
Are there any, I missed the other ones you said, but are there more prominent websites that I should, because I have a business that I've actually purchased with my EXP stock. It's a commercial business that my wife and I, convenience store, we were working it for a while. We're to the point where we're too busy to run a convenience store and sell real estate and life. So we're actually trying to consider our options. It comes with a beer and wine license, but it also has 600 square feet not being used in the building, and it's qualifies for recreational cannabis zone area. So we're even considering applying for the cannabis license and selling that with the whole package. So I have a couple questions for you in that scenario. So bizbuysell.com, what was the other website you said?
Bizben.com, BIZBEN. Now, BizBen used to be a California only site.
Okay.
And they went national. It's still primarily used by California. Business brokers in California know about it and typically use it. Anybody outside of California may or may not. Biz by Sell is an 800-pound gorilla. I mean, that really is where most people go. BizQuest is, I think, is owned by. So there was a roll up that was done. I think Biz by Sell and BizQuest were both acquired or by LoopNet, or maybe Biz by Sell might have acquired BizQuest first, then it was acquired by LoopNet, and then LoopNet was acquired by CoStar. So CoStar owns all of it now.
Okay. And so we, like I said, we're gonna possibly apply for that license and have the beer and wine license. We're still going through the township and making sure that that's something that's even allowed. But is that something like selling the licenses? Can you sell those on these websites, or does it have to be the whole business?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I haven't seen, typically, I haven't seen like just a liquor license being sold.
Okay.
Out on Biz by Sell, but Biz by Sell does allow new franchises and new startups. So it may allow the sale of a liquor license. I don't really know. You'd have to look at their terms.
Okay.
Because I just have never done that before. So I don't know.
And when you say that people are selling a franchise, that means that they're really just like selling equity, right?
No, franchise, there's franchisors that are out there on Biz by Sell that will sell startup franchise units.
Oh, and
so, it might be a lot of home health care. There's a lot of home health care franchises now because you have an aging baby boomer population. And so more and more you're needing people to help out with seniors with some home that want to stay in their homes. So you have home health care. But there's also, franchises for auto repair and franchises for food services, franchises. And so there's there's existing franchises that basically are being sold, and it's sold as just a sale of the business assets, typically, at least in the US. But then there are also startups where they're selling a territory and a franchise agreement. The person's going to have to get a lease approved, find a location that's approved by the franchisor, do the whole build out and all that. They're not going to see a dime of income for at least 6 months. So, yeah.
So that kind of gets me to my next question. Do you ever see businesses where the owner owns the real estate, he owns the land, and he wants to still own the building and maybe have a lease or have equity in the business still and like sell it to a partner? Are
no.
Sold on
own the real estate? Yes. Do a long-term lease for the new business owner? Yes. Be a partner? No, because we can't, in California, at least where I'm licensed, we're not allowed to sell a portion of a business without having a securities license. We can sell. So when we're selling a business, even if it ends up being a stock sale, it has to be 100% of the business. So we don't sell partnerships. We don't sell investments per se.
Okay. You would
Uh,
pretty much
I
find
would
a
say,
partner and
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
you can, as far as the building goes, I do have business owners that own the real estate and they don't want to sell it yet. They want to sell the business, and the new business owner is going to enter into some type of long-term lease. Maybe they have an option to buy, maybe they don't, maybe they get a first right of refusal. All of that is up to negotiations between buyer and seller.
okay. And that long-term lease is already in place when you list the business on Biz by Sell.
No,
Or
it's typically if the seller owns the building as well, then typically that's going to be negotiated with the buyer, because
Okay.
but the buyer is just be told that either the real estate is available for purchase or it's not.
Okay.
The buyer is going to know that the seller or an affiliated entity owns the real estate. And if the seller can dictate, hey, I want a 10-year lease, or they can say, you know, if the buyer wants a 3-year lease with a couple of 3-year options, I'm good with that. So it's going to end up with the negotiations, and also how's the business being purchased? Because if the business is being purchased using an SBA loan, then the SBA loans are typically 10 years. So they want to see 10 years in terms of the length of a lease. That 10 years is including the options. So it doesn't have to be a 10-year lease. It could be a 2-year lease with 4 2-year extensions, options to extend.
Okay.
But they just want to see a 10-year total.
And let's say the 10-year
more.
lease is up, they bought the business for a certain dollar amount. That's
Yeah.
already been handled. When the lease is up, they can obviously decide to leave. And now that space is available again. Would I need to come up with a new business name, or whoever rents that space, that's just on them, whoever is going to come in and use that space, because it's a convenience store.
But it doesn't, maybe it's a convenience store now. That doesn't mean it's always
Right.
going to be.
Right.
So
Okay.
yeah, anybody, you know, if you own the building and let's say let's say they give it a 3-year lease with 2 3-year options, and they don't exercise the option. So at the end of 3 years, they didn't extend. Maybe you want to sell the building. Maybe you want to increase the rent. Maybe they don't like the rent increase. They decide to leave. So you just lease the building to anybody, you know, you just put it on the market for lease, and anybody coming in can figure out what they want to do with it.
Okay. All right. Well, you answered a ton of questions for me. I really appreciate that. And then if I'm an agent as well, but I own the building, and I would say I was going to list this, do I still need to join IBBA?
If you're doing it by owner, then what brokerage firm are you with?
EXP.
Yeah, so call your state broker and
Okay.
ask what they require,
Okay.
because corporate has different, I mean, there's legal, you know, there's what's required by law, but you are affiliated now with a publicly held company. So they have to have certain regulations in place that will protect them and their shareholders. So they may have requirements that are more stringent. You know, but I would say, again, call your state broker and ask about that. And then you also can send a question to info@expcommercial.com and just say, hey, I own a business that I want to sell. I want to put it on Biz by Sell myself. I don't know, you know, do you want the transaction to go through EXP? I don't know. I mean, so yeah, at that point, they're going to tell you what's required from a company policy standpoint. Okay.
And then last question, I'll let you go. Is there a standard commission when you're selling a business?
Commissions, just like with real estate, commissions are negotiable. So, I mean, most of the time with small businesses, I generally see 10 to 15%, somewhere in the range.
Okay.
Sometimes less.
Total, or is that to the buyer's agent, or is that the same kind of structure?
I can say probably in Florida is the only state where I see a lot of fee sharing as being prevalent when it comes to business sales. Here in California, probably maybe 10 to 15% of the transactions of the brokers out there will share fees. And that's if they know you and they know you know how to do your job. Business sales are confidential. Typically, when you're advertising a business, the buyers are coming to you because they have to sign an NDA, they have to do things. And so usually there's not another agent involved in your transaction. And if they want their own, if a buyer decides they want their own agent, the general philosophy is that the seller's attorney is not paying the buyer's attorney and the seller's CPA is not paying the buyer's CPA. So the seller's broker, why should the seller's broker pay the buyer's broker?
Right.
The buyer wants a broker, they're welcome to go get one.
So
there's usually not a need for one though, quite honestly.
I'd be saving 10 to 15% by representing and listing it and doing it myself.
For me personally, when I sold my house, and I'm not residential, but when I sell things, because I'm in California and I don't know what state you're in, but because I'm in California, everything here is so litigious, I like having that third party in between. So I don't, even if it costs a certain amount in commission, it's well worth it from my standpoint to have that, that distance between you as the owner also being, especially if you're going to be a dual agent and represent the buyer when you're selling your own property or your own business, it creates conflict of interest and a situation where it's really easy for a buyer to burn the business to the ground and then come back and accuse you of non-disclosure, right?
Yeah.
Or misrepresentation and all that. So I personally would pay the fees to somebody that I trusted. There's lots of brokers out there. You probably know some of them, and have them do the deal for you and just pay them. It's insurance the way I see it.
I like it. Thank you so much.
Sure.